Welcome to the program. There is the People's Bench coming to you from Muthu Silver Springs Hotel here in Nairobi. I am your host Fred Ong'wen. Tonight I'm having the honor to host the ODM Party Executive Director, Dr. Oduor Ong'wen. He worked very closely with the late former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, was his very close friend, and we are here to find out who was Raila Odinga in the eyes of Dr. Oduor Ong'wen. How are you? Pole sana, daktari. Pole sana.
Life has to continue, though it will never be the same.
Yes.
Yes.
I know it was very shocking, devastating, and a very tough moment for you, having worked very closely with the Right Honorable Raila Odinga.
Indeed it was.
Yes. Yeah. So maybe you could start by telling us, when did you meet Raila and your journey with him, the Raila you knew?
Fred, it is very painful referring to Raila Odinga in past tense. It's really painful. I've known Raila for 44 years. That is much longer than I even knew my own biological father, who passed on when I was just 17 years old. I met Jacob in May 1981. That time I was a student at the University of Nairobi. I was in the student leadership. And because of that position, we used to organize a lot of public lectures and public discussions. So there is this one afternoon when we organized a public lecture, and the speakers were those who had been labeled by the late Charles Jojo as 7 bearded sisters. These included people like Koigi wa Mwere, Mashengu wa Mwachofi, James Orengo, Abuya, Shigule wa Suma, I think Lawrence was also part of that. So we invited them, and we had a very heated discourse. Then during question and answer and comments, somebody from the back of Taifa Hall made a comment, and it attracted the attention of everybody. You know, an intervention that makes everybody, those who are facing the podium, look behind, and those who are in the podium trying to check where that voice was coming from. And that time, not many people knew Raila Odinga. Actually, the only Jaramogi's son, who was then very well known, was Dr. Oduor Ong'wen, because Oburo had already been in politics as a councillor in Kisumu, and was then a provincial planning officer in government. So he was better known. Raila Odinga then was the deputy managing director of the Kenya Bureau of Standards. So just you are everyday civil servant, because that time KEBS was not even a parastatal, it was a government department. So that is when at the end of the meeting, I went and we introduced each other with other student leaders, working people like David Murave, Sia Onyango, Gonya Dongo, and others. And that is where now familiarity started, having discovered that, there's Jaramogi's son, who is also fairly senior in government, and people do not know much about. So after that, we didn't exchange much. We now knew each other, but didn't exchange much until August 1982. As everybody knows, even those who are born very recently, that on 1st of August in 1982, there was a coup by the Kenya Air Force, which was short-lived because it was later crashed. Yeah, after that, Raila was arrested and taken through a few police stations, ending up at GSU headquarters on Thika Road. Me and other students, after the coup had been crushed, the university was closed. So I found my way home to Siaya, my home is. And after a short time, the state came for me. I was arrested. I ended up being detained at GSU training school in Embakasi. Both of us ended being charged in the law court.
You and Raila?
Yes. We were about 67 students who were arrested and charged. Jacom also had some colleagues like my own professor, whom I had been with the 2 weeks before the Professor Vincent Otieno Sanya. Then there was Otieno Makonyango. So he was being held at committee, as we were being held at GSU, at industrial area. But we used to now meet in the corridors of the justice, yes. And we would exchange a few words in the cells of the courts. So that continued until 1993, February. To be precise, I and other 60 students were released on 23rd of February, 1993. I think a day or two later.
1993 or 83?
Oh, 1983.
Yes.
Sorry, yeah, 83. A day or two later, he was also released. Our cases were dropped by the state because they didn't have evidence to sustain the charges they were starting us with. So I went back to the university to finish my undergraduate course. Raila Odinga, Professor Sanya, and Otieno Makonyango, however, were not released after the charges were dropped. They were taken to jail and detained without trial. So, to cut a long story short, that is how our political paths had crossed that far. Of course, I went and graduated, but I didn't last long outside. I was taken back to jail. So, as political prisoners, we served. It's very well documented. The first detention of Jacob lasted almost 6 years, no, 5 years, from February 1982 to February 1988. His freedom was very short-lived. He was released while I was still inside. But he didn't take even more than 6 months and he was back to committee.
Another detention without trial.
Another detention without trial, which again lasted until 1989. I think it must have been around June. Again, he didn't stay long outside. In March 1990, again, he was detained, that time alongside Kenneth Rubia and Kenneth Matiba and Charles Rubia. So, cumulatively, it was almost a decade behind bars, without charge, without trial. I came out in early 1989. Then in 1990, July, the time the three of them were detained, plus other people like Haminwa, Gitobu in Manyara, and Wakili, now Judge of Supreme Court, Mohammed Ibrahim, were detained without trial. So after the Sabasaba events, me, I was in Kisumu. I didn't even come to Nairobi for the event. But again, they came for me in Kisumu. But because I got a tip when they were coming, I didn't risk going back to detention again. So I took off.
You literally ran away
yes,
from meeting them.
I went to Exile. And I was in exile for 2 years.
Which country?
Uganda, then Sweden, because these countries have an agreement of not holding exiles from each other. So I had to go to Sweden. In my own way, I found my way back to Uganda because I wanted to be nearer action. What was happening here, agitation for multipartyism. So I could sneak in and consult with those who are in the movement for restoring multiparty democracy. And Raila also in November 1991, they wanted to arrest him again. And some people feared that it was not unfounded, that maybe they wanted to kill him. So he also had to take off. And I think that is very well documented in his book, how he left. He came to Uganda. I was very close to state security agencies in Kampala then, and therefore when he came I was able to know, but he didn't stay there long. He was sent out to exile in Norway. So both of us came back in 1992 after the one-party law had been repealed, and I think the rest is history. How Raila Odinga immersed himself in the struggle for the restoration of multi-party democracy, and how since then it's never looked back.
We are coming there, but allow me to take you back a little. When you were arrested and detained after the attempted 1982 coup, recently there is a video that Raila was talking, and I think he was addressing ODM leaders, and he alluded and recalled what was going back in his mind then when he could see some people in committee, those who were going to be hanged, and somebody is telling him that bye-bye and go and say bye to my family. What did this bring into your memories? Because this, I think, is very recent, just before his demise. And if at all you were in that meeting.
Of course, I want to confirm that being behind bars is not so much about you, but what you see around you and what you leave behind you. Like for about a year, I was in solitary confinement with just mental patients. I sympathize with these people and the way they were being treated. And some of these were former pilots in the Kenya Air Force. Some of them were very senior people within the military. It is the same block where we were with the former commander of Kenya Air Force, Major General Kariuki, and others. Now, what Raila was talking about was the time they were going to hang the people who are being convicted as coup leaders, wakina Hezekiah Chuka, Otayo, quite a number of them. And you know, that day for the prison warders, it was a ceremony. You are locked in very early as by 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You have eaten your dinner and you are locked in, and then the music. And that day, even the diet was better. A lot of meat for you.
Come on, they are playing music that somebody is going to be hanged.
Yeah, then they are playing music. I suspect the music was so that even if those people are crying, you are not able to hear. But the warders were enjoying it.
That they were going to hang someone.
Because the following day, some of them come and tell you how it was. And when they are talking about it, they are laughing. Like there was this one who was telling us how this Okumate was very was resistant as he was being taken there, and he fought the orders and that kind of thing. So it's a very painful situation. You don't want to recall. It is something you don't want to know. So what people should know is that this country has gone through a phase, not just during colonialism, but even post-colonial Kenya. There was a phase that was very inhuman. And at least a lot has changed. Let's not say nothing has changed. But still there is a lot to change. Value for people's lives. I think even as recently as now, we have had a situation where they take out somebody's life as if it means nothing. If you take a 23-year-old young man's life simply because he was protesting against the abuse of his rights, or saying maybe the tax law which is being proposed is going to be to hurt them. I know the government must be able to raise revenue, but there are ways to deal with protests or dissent. When people say, let's have dialogue, let's have tax that is tolerable and so on. You don't have to take off their lives.
I hear you.
Yes.
I hear you. Let's move to multi-party, the fight for multi-party democracy, 1992, coming forward now.
Yeah, so of course the peak of this struggle for multi-party democracy was between 1988, although the fight had been there since 1969 when KPU was banned, because immediately after independence, we know in 1964 December, the government had persuaded KADU, which was then opposition, to fold up and join the government. So we had a de facto one-party state for about 2 years, and then KPU was formed to challenge Kanu monopoly, and KPU lasted only about 3 years, and using an excuse which was marked by massacre of Kenyans in Kisumu. KPU was proscribed, Jaramogi was detained, plus other leaders of the KPU party. So since then, we were a de facto one-party state, but the law still allowed anybody could form an opposition party. But in reality, they were very careful. I think there must have been somebody stationed at the office of the Registrar of Societies should anybody come and attempt to register a political party. So until 1982, when they moved, because there were already active attempts led by Jaramogi and the late George Anyona and others to register an opposition party. So they went to Parliament and in a record time changed the constitution to make Kenya a one-party state by law. So from then on, the struggle for multipartyism started. Partly because of this is why there was attempt to have to topple the government militarily, because there was no other avenue for dissent. But this mainly continued in the underground. However, in 1988, this became so blatant when they introduced what was called mlolongo voting, the queue voting. And everybody could see where the longer queue lost to a queue that had a handful of people. So the struggle to challenge one party rule did intensify at that time. For those who are aware at that particular time can see the church magazine called Beyond did document this to the minute detail.
Yes.
How this was done. Of course, for me, this was happening when I was in jail. Even some of those copies of Beyond were just smuggled to some of us in prison by warders that we have many to befriend. So that emboldened people, saying we can't allow this. This is now being too much. When we count on reverse, the longer queue loses to a shorter queue. So from 1988, even those who are establishment figures began questioning. That is how now the likes of Matiba, Charles Rubia, Kimani Wanyoike, and others who had been rigged using that kind of system began saying, we can't continue with this anymore. And therefore, even the church now, because Beyond was a church magazine published by NCCK, even the church began now coming out very boldly. Before that, only a handful of clergy used to challenge the government.
And
that is people like the late Henry Okolo, people like Alexander Muge, David Gitari, Ndingi Mwananzeki. Yes.
Yes. And
yeah. So that is how the winds gathered, the clouds for abolishing one-party dictatorship gathered, and the numbers swelled to the time that now it became a movement that couldn't be ignored, with the climax being Sabasaba, that is the 7th of July 1990. After that, there were very bold attempts to challenge, even when the law was still there, proscribing having a political party. If again, it is on record that in March 1991, Jaramogi boldly went to the office of the Registrar of Societies and said, I've come to register a political party called National Democratic Party, NDP. Of course, the registrar refused, but it became a way of mobilizing Kenyans that let's not be cowed, we must fight for our rights. Again, the year didn't end before FORD, the Forum for Restoration of Democracy, was established. And that is because our legal experts had looked at the law and said, you can have a pressure group. Nobody stops you from having a pressure group of not more than, I think it was 7 people, either 7 or 9. There was that loophole in law. And that is what was used to establish FORD as a pressure group. So it wasn't until December 1991 when KANU met at Kasarani and said they are going to ask their members in parliament to remove that section of the constitution that proscribed pluralism, that is section 2A, which had been inserted after less than 10 minutes of debate in parliament.
Thank you, Edie. With that, we've come to the end of our conversation tonight. It has been the People's Bench in a candid conversation with the ODM Executive Director, Dr. Oduor Ong'wen. On the bench today, I've been your host, Fred Ogweno. We were talking about matters ODM party and how it remembers the right Honorable Raila Odinga, who has since left us. Until next time, always remember to subscribe on that, or click on that button and subscribe at the People's Bench, so that anytime we have this kind of conversation, you would always see them. Until next time, bye-bye.